Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedlie, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Jedlie Magic on Twitter, and at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram. Our guest today is Uncle Mike Chavez, the host of the Uncle Mike Reads on YouTube. Before we bring Mike into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading With Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Real Magic. That's a book by me. I'm real excited about it. Uncle Mike read Real Magic on his show, and I really want you to check it out. He did a really fabulous job reading this story and really brought out the emotion. It's a really, really emotional book for me. It's a true story. It's an absolutely true story. A magical thing happened one day when an audience full of kids, about 1,800 kids, made a really shy young girl who would come up on stage to help me with a trick, helped her feel welcome. And because of that respect, that kindness that the audience showed her, something amazing and magical happened. It's a great story to remind us all that when we help somebody feel loved, magical things can happen. I want to give you and your family a chance to have Real Magic for free. That's right. You can download a digital version of Real Magic for free. All you need to do is two ways you can do this. You can go to my website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button that you'll find at the bottom of the page. Let us know that you want the digital copy. We will send it right out to you. You can also send me an email on my email. It's Jedlie, Jedlie, Jedlie at jedlie.com. That is a free digital version of Real Magic. Just send us a note and let us know you want it. We will get it to you right away. Joining us on the line right now from beautiful Orange County in California, right outside of Los Angeles. My guest today is a new friend, someone that I met out at the Orange County Children's Book Festival. He's making a big mark in children's literature with his YouTube channel, Uncle Mike Reads. Please welcome to the show, Mike Chavez. Mike, how are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking.
I'm really happy to have you on the show. Tell me what inspired you to create Uncle Mike Reads.
I kind of fell into it backwards. I wanted to do something special for my niece for her birthday, and her parents always get her everything, so the last thing she needed was a new toy. Uh-huh. So I just gone through a bunch of books that I used to read to my kid, and I figured I'd give her an experience. I'd actually read her the book and then give her the book. And I ended up doing that, and she loved it. And my sister ended up recording it. Oh. And so on the way home, I was thinking, I should do that with my other nieces and nephews I could send it to. So I'm like, okay, I'll just edit it a little bit and put it up on YouTube. And from there, it's like, well, why do they have to be related to me? If any kid wants to watch this, I would love to share this. And that's how it started. And then every week I was like, I got another book I want to read, and it's morphed into helping other authors get their books and message out, too.
And I really love that. And that's one of the things that I wanted to comment on is that Mike will be the first one to say that he didn't invent this idea of going on YouTube and reading picture books. But Mike does what I think should be done in that he gets permission from the authors. There's a lot of folks out there who are reading books and they don't have permission. Some of them are getting, some of them are reading books that are being published by large publishing houses, and those publishing houses are understandably not happy that their intellectual property is being shared without their permission. You're doing it the right way and working with authors to, showcase them. And so I have to tip my hat to you for that. That's a great thing. What was it that let you know, that informed you that the right thing to do was to work with authors and get permission before you went out and shared their work online?
Great question. There was a book fair at USC last year, and I ditched class because I was so enamored with the thought of a book fair. I've never been to one before. And I ended up meeting a ton of authors who are, mostly self-published. And, I told them about what I do, and they started giving me their books. It's like, oh, would you like to review my book? And I'm like, I'd love to. And I found that it was so much more rewarding to actually build a relationship with these authors, include only as much of the book as they wanted, a portion or sometimes the whole thing, but also as a way to share with the readers who these authors are, and what motivates them too. So it's ended up becoming this much more different than I could have ever expected, and I love it.
That's really wonderful. Now, I love that the motivation for this was to do something really nice for your niece. I have a niece that's so important to me, and those relationships are so cool. What other kind of things have you learned and discovered, that you didn't expect to learn?
Really about how passionate these authors are about what they do and their love for kids and wanting to foster literacy and all the different empowering things for kids, about self-esteem and, all these messages that these books share, just like your book, Real Magic, really talked about empathy and, just being a good person and being nice to people. Like, and you saw I choked up a couple times reading your book, and you choked up on an earlier portion that you said that most people don't really get worked up until later.
Yeah. Mike did read Real Magic, one of my picture books, and I have to tell it was really touching for me when I saw you read it. At first, I was really surprised that you read it cold on video, and I'm like, oh, good for him. That's I think it's good because that reaction that you had was very, very unique and not very unique. It's very genuine and very human. And I think that's one of the things that I remember reading with my kids, and there are a number of books that we read together where I would get choked up. And I know that it didn't embarrass my kids. I think it helped us grow closer together. It helped them see me in a vulnerable state. And I think that's a good thing for kids to be able to see that their parents can be vulnerable at times. And I think for you to be able to have the courage to do that on your channel, when it would have been very, very easy for you just to hit pause, rewind, go back and do it over again, and then just read it without choking up. I think for me anyways, it made your reading of my book so much more powerful than, if I had a professional actor do it.
Right, and that was the intention, right? Like, I don't like to read the books beforehand because I want my reactions to be real and unique, and you could tell, it's like, and I don't want to fake it, and I feel that it's important for kids, especially little boys, to see men showing real emotion. It's still, we've come a long way from, the 50s and whatnot, but I think that it's still very important for kids to learn that they can, show emotions other than anger and, frustration.
Yeah, that really is, that is very important. And guys learn from that. Young guys are really good at expressing anger and frustration,
right.
and they're not so good at being able to show that they're sad or that they're hurting or that they're lonely. And a lot of times for guys, those feelings, when they bubble up and the kids don't understand what they are, it gets turned into anger. So yeah, it's really important for us, especially as men, as father figures, uncles, grandfathers, important for us to be able to model to them that, yeah, we all have these feelings that make us feel kind of lousy. But it's not all anger.
Right.
Yeah. What have been some of the favorite books that you've read? I know it's unfair, and you're going to leave out some books. So I just I didn't give Mike a chance to think about this. So if he forgets your book authors,
No.
it's not his fault. It's my fault.
I have to say, one of my favorite all-time books, still to this day, is the first book that I read for my niece, and that was The Monster at the End of This Book by John Stone. It features Grover, and that one was an unlicensed video because I had no intention of making it public, but I received no revenue from that one. I'm not monetizing. I don't monetize those old ones. And I think mostly, one is because it's just entertaining to read, and the kid gets to interact with the book because Grover is actually talking to the reader, asking them not to turn the page, and getting frustrated when they do, that kind of thing. It's it's a lot of fun to read and do voices and that sort of thing. But also, it just gives you so many memories of reading to my son, and it just chokes me up every time. But these books by these authors that I've been reading, so many of them have such powerful messages, and it's just things that really hit close to home for me are, father-son relationships or, different things, about dealing with bullies or self-esteem, or, your book about compassion and that sort of thing, and celebrating people's differences. I think that's, all of those books are so, I've enjoyed them so much. I do have to share one thing. I was a friend asked me to read a book, and it was like a retelling of like the Cinderella story. And I read it, but I was just not into it because what's the message? Just wait around and if you're pretty enough, someone will come rescue you type situation. And so after I did that, I went back and actually recorded another book right away, and it had a message that was deeply meaningful to me, and I had so much fun doing that.
Oh, wonderful. Now, you're also very involved outside of your show in children's literature. You're a member of the board for Reading is Fundamental SoCal. Right. Can you talk a little bit about that mission and how you get involved in that and what kind of things you guys are doing?
Absolutely. Yes, RIF SoCal for short. They're a nonprofit here in the LA area, and their mission is to promote literacy and motivate children to read by reading new books, or by providing new books to them to create home libraries for underserved kids. Kids, and a lot of these kids never even owned a book in their life. So it's transformational about getting them to want to read for fun, not just because they have to. Yeah. And I got into this was by another author I met at a book fair. You sensing a theme here? These book fairs are like changing my life. And she was on the board, or is on the board, and she invited me to be a board member.
So, one of the things I've noticed about the Kidlit community is that it is so supportive. And even though authors are technically competing, we all want our books to be sold, and there's only so many books that a family can buy. So yes, our mutual friend Angie Flores and our other mutual friend Sherry Fink, they both have books out and they're appealing to the same kind of audiences, and maybe a family can only buy one book. So in that sense, they're competitors, but the way the folks in the Kidlit community act, it's such a cooperative community. Is that the same thing that you're finding?
Absolutely. And actually, when it comes down to competition, I guess on the surface, I guess there is a certain level of competition, but I think far more is that the supportive nature of this community is helping each other become better writers, because I think it's the quality that matters. Those two authors, they tell very different stories. So it's almost like, you could like football and baseball at the same time, right? It's kind of like that. And I find that I've received so much support for a book that I'm writing now, by these same authors that, yeah, I'd be entering their space, but they're only all too helpful, willing to help me get that done.
Well, you just kind of stepped on my next question. I was going to ask you, with all this exposure in children's literature and reading all these books and working with all these authors, has the writing bug caught you? And obviously the answer is yes. Can you tell us about this new project?
Yes, and I've been inspired, like you said, by all these authors and just their passion. And, I've had a story in my heart for years that I've told over and over again, speaking. But it wasn't until, I got in this space that I actually thought, oh, you know what, maybe I can make this a reality. And it actually has to do with a true story of my son. He was struggling through school. I ended up getting primary custody with him for him, and I helped him completely turn it around. But he worked his butt off to get it done, and I couldn't have been more proud. In one semester, he changed all his grades around. He had 5 Fs and a D.
Whoa!
And I changed it all around to passing grades.
That's fantastic. What a great story of inspiration and hope, and I imagine too just resiliency and working hard.
Yes, nothing comes to you for free. You got to work at it.
Yeah.
But what you want to do, you can get there, but it takes a lot of work and discipline and patience.
Now, what background do you have outside of Uncle Mike Reads, your YouTube channel, and now that you are getting into writing yourself? But this is new. What had you been doing before that?
Well, I joined the Army while still in high school. I served for about 4 years. I was in Alaska and Colorado, and then when I got out, I kind of fell into marketing and business development, and I did that for 20 years. And I was actually fairly successful at it, and I left. I basically quit a 6-figure income to do this YouTube channel. It's like I've never done anything remotely like this before. But I did. I went back to school and I got my master's from USC, and their business program had a strong emphasis on entrepreneurship. And the message that I received was that, okay, so many people around the world, they're just struggling to get by, and a lot of them don't have the opportunities that we do here. And it's like it's almost an incumbent on me to take advantage of that and pursue what I love as opposed to what's just going to make me money.
I need to ask you, where did you get the courage to do that? Because, yeah, but I mean, it's you're laughing, but boy, you get to a point in your life where you're comfortable, and people hear 6-figure income and they think, wow, but you're living in Southern California, the Los Angeles area, 6-figure income. That's kind of middle class, just with the cost of living and everything. It did take a lot of courage for you to make that move to make your dream come true. Where did that courage come from?
Well, my dad always pushed entrepreneurship. He had his own business, painting houses, and I started working with him from the 6 years old. And they had 10 kids. I'm number 8 of 10. So we had no money ever. So one of the things that I became was a strong saver. So I've always saved. I've always lived well beneath my means. So I already had a big chunk saved up over the past 20 years. My original intention was to jump into real estate. That's why I went back to school in the first place. But my passion and heart is not there. So I just use that money as my safety net to go actually take this leap.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm so happy that you did, because I think that you're making a difference in a lot of lives. I want to go back to something you mentioned when you were telling us about the work you did are doing with RIF. You mentioned that there are so many kids that you were serving who've never owned a book before in their life. I want that to sink in, because I think most of the people who are listening to this, they're either authors, they're teachers, they're parents who are reading with their kids, and they probably have a home library, like the home library I had for my kids with oodles of books. I can't put a number on it.
Right.
There's probably my kids right now are 26 and 23, and we have at least 50 of their kids' books that, oh no, these are too special to throw away or to give to somebody else.
Right.
We got to save this for the grandkids. I can't imagine. I know it exists because I've met kids who don't own any books, but that is such a difficult spot in life, a difficult position in life to imagine for a kid. What kind of things can we do to help those kids?
That's a great question. I mean, you could go to Riff SoCal, their webpage, and there's a different number of ways to get involved to donate. But there's also the National Reading is Fundamental as well. But go talk to your local schools. Go to your local libraries. You can donate books. There's so many different avenues that you can do to put books into kids' hands. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important. It's critically important that kids do have books at home that they could read for fun and not because they have to for school, mm-hmm. and a book that they could write their own name in. It's just like, that is such a powerful thing for a kid to know that they own this book. And what we found is that the books that we're giving out to these kids, they started to trade them with the other kids. And it's like, oh, this book is so good, you need to read it. It's spreading that passion. And it's just, I can't explain or articulate how proud I am of this program. That's really wonderful.
Last night I was watching a TV show called Undercover Angel. And mm-hmm. they basically, I guess they find billionaires and they put them, last night the billionaire was in a village in Uganda, and at the end of the show, he took out $60,000 of his money and he brought clean water into this community. And it was wonderful. It was a heartwarming story. So amazing. Oh, this community finally has water. They don't have to walk 3 or 4 miles a day to a polluted spot to bring home drinking water. Now they can turn on a tap in their block, in their neighborhood, and they have clean drinking water. That's fantastic.
Life-changing.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Mike. I don't have an extra $60,000 lying around to go to Uganda to do that. But right. I do have an extra 10, 15, 20 bucks that I can go out and use to buy a book that could change the trajectory of a kid's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, tell us, before I ask you to remind us of the address for your YouTube channel, you told us about the book that you're working on right now. Do you have plans for future books, and are you looking to dive into any other topics?
Well, I think that for me, I think the motivation to write is because you have a compelling story to tell. Mm-hmm. And, I have 1 or 2 other stories floating around in my head. But I that's a really good question on whether or not I would just continue writing. I love writing, but I also have so many different interests too. I like history, I like, different sports, I love physics, I love chemistry, all these things. And so, even not in the nonfiction spaces is appealing as well.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes out of the mind of Uncle Mike Chavez. Uncle Mike, tell everybody where they can find your YouTube channel.
Yes, if you go to YouTube, just type in Uncle Mike Reads. I'm the first one that pops up, and you'll see a ton of videos. So yeah, if you could, I'd love you check it out. If it's what you like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and let's reach more kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would suggest, just a suggestion, but his reading of Real Magic is spot on, and it's very, very powerful, and I think that you'd enjoy it. We've been having a great time speaking to the driving force behind Uncle Mike Reads on YouTube, Mike Chavez. Mike, thanks so much for being on the show.
I appreciate you giving me these opportunities, Jedlie.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Syra Mir. She is the author of Muslim Girls Rise. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a great children's book, you're probably thinking to yourself, how can I let people know about my books? I can't do author visits in schools. Schools are closed. I can't do author visits in libraries. Libraries are closed. I can't do author visits in bookstores. Bookstores are closed. Well, one way you can let the world know about your book is by being a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book, and it does not cost anything. All you need to do is to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button that you'll find at the bottom of the page, and we'll let you know the next easy steps. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very, very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank Uncle Mike Chavez. Be sure to check out Uncle Mike Reads on YouTube, and be sure to check out his reading of Real Magic. Also want to thank everybody out there who is going to get in touch with us and request their own free digital version of Real Magic. Two ways you can do that. You can send me an email, jedlie@jedlie.com, and Jedlie is spelled Jedlie. You can also go to readingwithyourkids.com, click on that contact button at the bottom of the page. Let us know you want the free book. We will get it out to you right away. Also want to thank my amazing team. Want to give a big shout out to my amazing producer and new mom, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Thank you so very, very much for keeping your family safe through this difficult time. But most of all, thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.